You think living with your children in old age will bring peace, warmth, and happiness? You might be mistaken. Sometimes, what begins with love quietly turns into a trap, where you lose your voice, your independence, and even yourself. But don't worry, because the most important thing, how to maintain your freedom and dignity without breaking family bonds, will be revealed at the end of this video. Imagine this: a bird that stays too long in its nest eventually forgets how to fly. The same goes for many parents as they grow older. They believe living with their children will make them feel safe, cared for, and loved. But reality often tells a very different story. At first, sharing a home seems ideal. But soon enough, it turns into a subtle trap. You lose your space, your autonomy, and slowly, even your voice. What began as a supportive gesture now becomes a situation where you no longer control your own decisions. And the worst part? That pure, unconditional love gradually gives way to fatigue, indifference, and even silent resentment. If you think this will never happen to you, I urge you to stay until the end. What I'm about to share may completely change your perspective. I'm Gabriel, and this is the Stoic Garden, where truth and ancient wisdom meet. What you hear today may be the fine line between a dignified old age or a life filled with regret, let's be honest. If parental love is unconditional, why do so many feel like strangers in their own children's homes? The answer is simpler than you think. Raising a child and living with them as adults are two entirely different things. You've given everything for them: dreams, sleepless nights, money, and health, to ensure they had a bright future. But now, as the roles shift, you find yourself in an uncomfortable place. The gratitude you expected has faded, replaced by sighs, distance, and at worst, the heavy sense of obligation. You may have confused unconditional love with the idea that your children will gladly welcome you into their world. But love doesn't always mean living under the same roof. Let me share Julia's story, a 72-year-old widow who moved in with her eldest son after losing her husband. At first, everything felt perfect. Her daughter-in-law smiled warmly, her son was happy to have her nearby, and her grandchildren played around her just like they did years ago. But slowly, things began to shift. She was no longer invited to every conversation. Her advice was met with forced politeness. Then one morning, as she made coffee, she overheard her daughter-in-law whisper to her son, "I love your mum, but sometimes I feel like we have no space left." Julia said nothing. She quietly finished her coffee and returned to her room. Once her grandsons, still decorated with cartoon posters and piled with toys. For the first time, she felt like a stranger in her own family's home. This isn't about cruelty or selfishness. It's about the simple truth that grown children have their own lives, habits, and worlds, and you are no longer at the center of them. If you fail to recognize this, you may become trapped in a relationship that steals your freedom and dignity rather than giving you peace. Marcus Aurelius once said, "Love others, but not at the cost of losing yourself." At this stage in life, love does not mean dependence. It doesn't mean fading into the background or becoming a shadow in your children's house. True love means realizing your happiness should not rely on their roof, their presence, or their approval. If you cling to the idea that everything will be fine as long as I live with them, you risk turning love into obligation and gratitude into resentment. This may be hard to accept, but it's the truth you need to face. We uncovered a hard truth. Love, no matter how deep, can become a heavy burden when it's no longer accompanied by respect and freedom. Now it's time to dive even deeper into the harsh reality few dare to face. The goal in old age isn't to live in fear of loneliness. It's to build a life where companionship is a mutual choice, not an imposed obligation. But if you believe your children owe you everything simply because you're their parent, reality will eventually knock on your door. When it does, you may realize, and perhaps too late, that the pure love you once shared has slowly faded. In its place, awkward silences, forced conversations, and the painful feeling that your presence has become more of a burden than a blessing. If this strikes a chord deep within, brace yourself. What comes next will be even more honest, even more raw. Let's face it. The home you once built with love can slowly transform into enemy territory, especially when you trade your independence for a false sense of security. Love alone is not enough to make a home livable. You may carry the best intentions, a sincere desire to share your later years with your children. But there's a reality you cannot ignore. When you step into someone else's house, even if it's your child's, you're entering their world, not yours. And that's exactly where the problem begins. Your home used to be your sanctuary. Every object, every scent, every corner carried pieces of your story. The chair where you once read your favorite books. The table where you greeted each morning with a cup of coffee. The pantry organized just the way you liked it. The freedom to make decisions without asking for anyone's approval. But when you move in with your children, you leave all of that behind. More than walls and furniture, you surrender your sovereignty over your life. At first, it may seem harmless. You tell yourself it's no big deal, that you can adjust. But slowly, the changes creep in. You no longer choose what to watch on TV. Someone else already claimed it. You change your meal times to match the household's rhythm. You start staying quiet in conversations because your voice feels unwelcome. Little by little, you find yourself walking on eggshells in what should feel like home. And here's the real danger. It's not just about comfort. It's about the psychological toll it takes on you. Epictetus once said, "No one is truly free who depends on another for peace." This is the core issue. Your autonomy isn't stolen. You give it up, willingly or not, as circumstances slowly force you to. You stay quiet. You accept things you would have never tolerated in your own home. I remember Maria, a 76-year-old woman who moved in with her daughter. She promised herself she wouldn't be a burden. "I'm only here if they need me," she used to say. But over time, she realized the truth. Her personal space vanished. Her belongings were tucked away in corners. Her routines were dismissed as old lady habits. Whenever she tried to contribute, her words simply disappeared into thin air. One day, it hit her. She had traded everything for the illusion of safety. But safety without dignity is nothing more than silent slavery. And now the question many avoid must be asked. Is it truly worth giving up your autonomy just to avoid loneliness? Seneca once said, "What's a man's greatest enemy is not poverty or pain, but the feeling of uselessness." Indeed, that's what destroys people in old age, not the lack of money, not illness, not even time itself, but the terrifying sense of no longer belonging, of losing the right to make your own choices. If any of this feels familiar, if you've ever hesitated to make coffee in your child's kitchen, if you've ever stayed silent to avoid being a bother, then face the truth. You are no longer in your own home. And when a place stops being yours, it stops being home. We uncovered a difficult truth. When you trade your freedom to live with your children, the home you once knew can become foreign. But now we must go even deeper, because there's an even greater trap waiting. The emotional debt that never gets repaid. Let's talk about this hidden trap. The one called expecting gratitude. At this stage in life, it may be the most dangerous of all, because if losing your personal space is painful, realizing that your years of sacrifices may never be repaid can be utterly heartbreaking. A child's love is not a bank account. You cannot deposit years of dedication, effort, and sleepless nights and expect to withdraw them later as unconditional gratitude. Life simply doesn't work that way, and yet this belief, I gave them everything so they should return the favor, is what silently traps so many parents. We have now reached the third key point of this journey. The emotional debt that never gets repaid is often an invisible burden that many parents carry unknowingly. You may tell yourself you don't need anything from your children, that you only want them to be happy. But deep down, there's still a quiet longing for something, a heartfelt thank you, a warm hug, a sign that you haven't been forgotten. When that gratitude doesn't come as you imagined, disappointment begins to creep in. Like a small, persistent crack, resentment starts to form, growing silently over time. You start to wonder, after everything I've done, how did I become a secondary figure in their lives? Now they only see you when it's convenient. They call out of obligation. They help, but without the warmth you once knew. Seneca put it perfectly. The greatest mistake is expecting from others what only we can give ourselves. If you go through this phase of life expecting emotional justice, you are likely to end up deeply disappointed. Not because your children are bad people, but because time has shifted their priorities. They are no longer the children who looked up to you in awe. They have grown, become independent, and their love has changed shape. And this is where the life-changing strategy comes in. Release your children from the emotional debt you believe they owe you. Not because you don't deserve love and attention, but because by doing so, you also release yourself. When you let go of the expectation that they must repay you, you lift a heavy burden from your shoulders. This does not mean tolerating mistreatment or accepting cold indifference. It means understanding a crucial truth. Your happiness cannot depend on how others behave. In Stoic philosophy, this is one of the most powerful lessons. True freedom is the kind that does not depend on external factors. Marcus Aurelius expressed this in a simple yet profound way. Do good and forget about it. Imagine your love as a candle burning in the dark. Its light belongs to no one. It simply shines. If someone notices and draws closer, wonderful. If not, the candle continues to glow, expecting nothing in return. This is what love should be at this stage of life. Unconditional, free, and unburdened by expectation. And here's the magic of letting go. When you stop expecting, everything changes. Your relationship with your children becomes lighter, freer, because that silent tension, that invisible debt, disappears. Distance no longer feels like abandonment. It simply becomes a natural evolution of life. And the most surprising part? When you release them from expectations, their love often returns. This time, genuine and heartfelt, not born from duty but from true desire. If this reflection resonates with you, share your thoughts in the comments. Tell me which country you're watching from and write, I free my heart from expectations. And if you haven't yet subscribed, now is the perfect time. Every week we explore topics that can transform the way you see aging with dignity and wisdom, but the most important lesson is still ahead. In the next part, we will face the toughest question of all. If you can't rely on your children for emotional fulfillment, what can truly bring you strength and meaning in the years to come? We talked about letting go of expectations and freeing yourself from invisible emotional debts, but the journey doesn't end there. There's an even subtler trap waiting, one that can quietly erode your independence without you even noticing: the invisible line between support and dependence. Now we arrive at the fourth key point of this journey, and it's time to face a truth many avoid. If you don't clearly define your boundaries, if you don't build a life where you can stand strong on your own, then sooner or later you will cross the line between healthy support and complete dependence. This doesn't happen all at once. It begins quietly through small moments, accepting help with groceries, letting others make decisions for you, adjusting your routine to fit someone else's schedule. At first, it feels harmless, even comforting. You feel cared for and relieved, but what starts as a simple favor today can easily become a necessity tomorrow. Before you realize it, your ability to make decisions for yourself slowly slips away. Dependence isn't just about vulnerability. It also shifts the dynamics of your relationships. When your children feel obligated to always be there for you, the relationship begins to change. Love becomes overshadowed by a growing sense of burden. Even worse, you start becoming used to this arrangement. You rely on others more and more, forgetting how to solve problems on your own. Marcus Aurelius once said, "Look within. Inside you there is a wellspring of good, as long as you keep digging." But many don't. They choose comfort. They choose to let others take care of things, not realizing that each time they give up their independence, they are also giving up a part of their dignity. I've seen this story unfold countless times. People who once led independent lives suddenly find themselves playing a background role in their children's homes. They stop making decisions because someone else already does. They give up their personal space because it seems easier to adapt. At first, they are grateful, but slowly frustration creeps in. They feel stuck in a routine that doesn't belong to them anymore. Days become empty, passing by while they no longer choose how to spend them. And when they finally want to reclaim their independence, they face a harsh truth. They have forgotten how. Dependence is a sweet poison. It arrives disguised as help, company, and love. But if you're not careful, it can slowly consume you entirely. This isn't about rejecting support from those who care. It's about knowing how much to accept without losing yourself. Because the moment your well-being depends entirely on the will of others, you will have crossed a dangerous line, one that's incredibly hard to come back from. If this resonates with you, stay with me, because what comes next is even more important. We are about to reach the fifth key point, where you'll understand the silent and deep price of giving up your space and autonomy. When that happens, you don't just lose a room or a house, you lose your voice, your authority, and your sense of self. We talked about how dependence quietly steals your freedom. But here's the deeper truth. Many people don't stay trapped because they can't change. They stay because fear of change paralyzes them. This is exactly why so many people find themselves stuck in this painful cycle. Not because change is impossible, but because they're afraid to disrupt what feels familiar, even if it no longer serves them. But reclaiming your space doesn't mean you have to leave immediately or cut ties with your children. No, it means taking back what is still yours, your time, your habits, your decisions. It means setting clear boundaries, even if doing so feels uncomfortable or hurts at first. You must have the courage to say, "This is important to me. I need my privacy. I want to do this on my own. Don't wait for others to return what you willingly gave away. You must take it back yourself. Some might say, it's too late. At my age, does it even matter anymore? But that is a dangerous lie. It's a lie that keeps you stuck in acceptance and frustration. Because it doesn't matter how old you are. What matters is whether you choose to keep existing out of habit or to start living intentionally. The real cost of giving up your space isn't the minor daily inconveniences. It's the devastating feeling that you're no longer the main character of your own life. And that, more than anything else, is what truly destroys you in old age. If you've stayed with me this far, deep down, you already know. Change is necessary. And now we arrive at the sixth key point of this journey. Loneliness in company, the worst kind of abandonment. Nothing hurts more than sharing a roof with loved ones and yet feeling completely invisible. You wake up in a house that isn't truly yours, surrounded by people who should make you feel loved. But somehow you feel like a burden. Conversations flow without you. Decisions are made without your input. Life continues, as though your presence is just something to manage, not to cherish. Imagine a typical afternoon. You sit quietly in a living room chair while your children and grandchildren talk about their plans, worries, and day-to-day life. They're not ignoring you on purpose, but they're not really including you either. Every so often, someone asks mechanically, "Do you need anything?" But their words lack genuine interest. You smile and say, "I'm fine." But deep down, you know the truth. You have become just another object in the room. Present, but no longer truly seen. There you are, surrounded by people, yet more alone than ever. Loneliness isn't about physical distance. It's about losing connection, about no longer feeling like you matter. And when that realization hits you, a part of you begins to slowly fade. Seneca once said, "It's not that we have too little time, but that we waste much of it." And wasting time doesn't just mean staring at a TV or watching days slip by meaninglessly. It also means staying somewhere you're no longer valued. It means losing yourself in a place where you've sacrificed so much that you no longer know who you are without others. If nothing changes, frustration will come. At first, it's subtle. A mild discomfort you try to ignore. But over time, it turns into bitterness and injustice. You start to wonder, when did I go from being strong and independent to becoming a burden? And when you try to speak up, to express your discomfort, the response is always the same. But you have everything you need. We take care of you. Don't be ungrateful, as if having a roof over your head and food on the table should somehow ease the pain of feeling unseen and unimportant. But here's the thing. This doesn't have to be your fate. You are not condemned to live a life that feels like it belongs to someone else. You are not destined to become a silent shadow in your own story, because right after this, we are stepping into the most important part of this journey. The final lesson. A lesson that won't just open your eyes, but will reveal the only real way to reclaim your dignity and freedom and live your final years with purpose and peace. We have just reached the deepest pain, surrounded by loved ones, yet feeling more alone than ever. Now it is time to face the final truth, the truth that can change everything. If you've come this far, it means you already know the truth, a truth most people prefer to avoid. It's not your children's home that will give you true security. It's not their presence that will shield you from loneliness, and it's not even their love that will fix the feeling that you are no longer in control of your life. No, the harsh reality is this. The only person who can guarantee your dignity, freedom and peace is you. And that brings us to the seventh and final point of this journey. Freedom as the ultimate act of self-love. Do not wait for the world to make space for you. No one will hand back the independence you once gave up. No one will automatically offer the respect you no longer demand, and no one will fix the choices you made except you. If you continue waiting for something outside of you to change, if you hope that others will eventually make you feel whole again, you are only extending your own suffering. Because peace is not found under someone else's roof. It does not live in your children's forced presence, and it will never grow inside a routine that others create for you. Peace is personal. It is a conquest, and only you can claim it. Freedom does not mean isolation. It does not mean cutting ties or holding on to resentment. It means something much more powerful: choice. Choosing where and how you want to live. Choosing how you spend your precious time. Choosing which relationships to nurture and which to release. And most of all, it means accepting that while you cannot rewrite the past, the present is still in your hands. It does not matter how old you are. What matters is whether you choose today to stop simply existing and start living with intention. Seneca once said, "Life is not short. We just waste too much of it on things that do not matter." And the greatest waste of all, living without purpose, living without decisions, living without the courage to say, "This is what I want, and this is what I will no longer accept." If you remain trapped in expectations, you'll miss the chance to discover all that you are still capable of. The only way out is simple. Take control. Not tomorrow, not someday. Now, because every single day you delay is another day lost. A day you could have spent tasting true freedom. So ask yourself honestly, do you want to spend the rest of your life in a borrowed existence, waiting for things to change on their own? Or do you want to take back your power and finally decide that you deserve more than just resignation? Only you can answer that. But if something inside you right now is resisting, if there's even a small voice saying a different future is still possible, then you've already taken the first step. The rest? That's up to you. If you've stayed with me until now, it means you are ready to face reality. You are not like most. Most people live in denial. They convince themselves that things are not that bad, that it's easier to adapt than to change, but not you. You listened, you stayed, and deep down you know this decision can no longer wait. You must act. Not because it's easy, but because the alternative is terrifying. A slow, silent disappearance inside someone else's life, inside routines you didn't choose, inside a story where you no longer have a voice. So, if you're ready to reclaim control, leave a comment below with your country and write, "My life belongs to me." I want to see who understands this message and is ready to take that brave step. This channel isn't for those seeking sweet words or empty comfort. It's for those who have chosen to wake up, take responsibility, and live intentionally. I'm Gabriel, and this is the Stoic Garden, where age isn't a limitation. It's a test of how strong you can be when everything seems to push you toward resignation. If this video made you think, if something inside you stirred, then subscribe. Join this community of people who refuse to let life slip away while waiting for something that may never come. And don't keep this message to yourself. Share it with someone who might need it. Someone stuck in the same cycle, unaware that another way is possible. And if you're ready to go even deeper, check out these next 2 videos. They may just completely change how you see your future. This isn't the end of our conversation. It's only the beginning. I'll see you in the next video.